introduction because the cloud's been around for a long time, actually, and we got involved as Xperience in 2004 when it was known more as hosting. And when I'm talking to clients about it, I would typically try and say it's about us hosting or a third party hosting your key applications, programs, data, and managing that whole environment on your behalf. And I suppose, Tim, when we first met, you were probably quite traditional. The majority of your IT was all on premise.
It was, and our first conversations were really sort of revolved around replacing our infrastructure in Antrim with sort of a more robust and upgraded version of an on-premises solution.
Mm-hmm.
We were, at the same time, sort of as we were talking to yourselves, looking at our ERP system, which was on premises, and we were considering moving it to the cloud. And at the same time as when we upgraded our physical systems in Antrim, we moved our ERP system to the cloud. That was 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
So we always think we're sort of fairly early adopters of that. And it was a bit of a leap of faith, and I had to sort of take a couple of sharp intakes of breath to do it. But it's 7 years later, it's the best thing we've ever done, probably.
What was there nervousness from yourself or from the board?
There was nervousness from myself. The board said, if you're convinced it's going to work, Tim, get on with it. Here's the money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the big thing for us, it wasn't so much sort of moving sort of the ERP to the cloud. It was trying to sort of integrate with sort of the legacy systems and the things that we had to retain on premises.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one thing that sort of made me a bit nervous. Some of our legacy databases that had to continue to function and run and couldn't move into the cloud, but still had to communicate with the functions that I was putting in the cloud.
Right, and I remember that those conversations we had. It was all about trying to do those proof of concepts and make sure that the information was going to be available for that kind of integration. And I mean, how would you say it's helped the business with that offloading of that work?
I think it's a bit of a strange environment when one day you sort of go down to your server room and your ERP system sitting ticking over nicely in a server. The next day you go down to an empty space and you sort of think to yourself, have I done the right thing? But fundamentally, one of the reasons I sort of was quite keen to sort of do this was I spent some time with our workforce in the factory on premises in our mobile workforce. We have a sales team work in the mainland UK.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously their data requirements are as heavy and as important as the physical requirements in the office.
Mm-hmm.
So, the concept of moving to the cloud made a lot of sense and making sort of the data hosted. Because whenever when I went and worked with the sales guys, they were sitting outside the customer, struggling to try and get connected back to the office through VPNs to try and gather sales data. And it was evident that we had to do something to help them out.
Mm-hmm.
With the acquisition of Donington as well, the data in Antrim had to be accessible to Donington. So, physicality became less of an issue. We had to sort of get the information more accessible.
Right. So it was about giving people access to information as and when they needed it, and it was ultimately making the guys, I suppose, everyone more agile and give them quicker, easier access to information.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was actually embarrassed a couple of times when I went into the sales guys meetings because the customer had more information than them, and I said, this isn't the SAM way. This isn't good enough. As an IT director, I had to sort of equip these guys to go in and sort of have all the information they need at their fingertips, whether it's on their mobile phones or laptops, to be able to sort of go in and sort of discuss salient and important issues with customers.
Okay, so do you feel, looking back for that project of equipping the sales team and integrating Donington, do you feel it's made the guys more productive?
It has. The information is more easily accessible. It's accessible right through the plant. It's accessible. You take this sort of you're kind of removing the physical walls of information, the barriers of information, and information becomes. Not sure if it's the correct term, but we're device agnostic, as well. You don't need sort of a physical particular device to access information in the cloud.
Hmm.
In most cases, we're accessing information through standard browsers, whether it be Chrome or Firefox or Edge.
Right.
The tool, the data becomes more important rather than sort of the program or the computer.
Yes. Yes. So it's been able to give people access to the data regardless of what they're using.
Yes, we were yesterday. I was having a conversation with one of our sales guys who works down the south of Ireland, and just we sort of improved the way his data moves. We're using OneDrive now extensively to make sure that his information is easily accessible on his phone or
Hmm.
his Surface, or he can sort of quickly share information with his customer.
Yes.
These small tweaks are really important, and it sounds silly, but to Joe, the sales guy yesterday, it was a quantum leap for him.
Hmm. I suppose that's the challenge because we sometimes get so used to working a specific way that becomes embedded, and then we don't realize that there could actually be a slicker, smarter way of doing something. And I suppose having worked in the IT industry, quite often I think businesses would be quite traditional in their approach, and there's almost like a mystique about a cloud or trying to improve things. We've always done it this way. Have you found it's changed the way you're now working?
That's been one of the biggest challenges, is sort of the culture and legacy side of things, because you can put in the most perfect solution and people will still revert to type sometimes. If people feel comfortable with their spreadsheets, feel comfortable with their own little pockets of information or silos of information, as I tend to call them.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing challenge to sort of encourage people to be more accepting of information. It's the simple. I still see people think about sort of, I need to go and open a document, so I go to Microsoft Word, then I go and find my data and open it that way, as
Hmm.
opposed to going to the data and Word or Excel just becomes the tool that happens to open it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in simple terms, that's the way I tend to describe it, as a mindset change.
Hmm.
Focus on the data, not the tool to actually access it.
Yeah. That the tool's irrelevant. It's
The
get
tool
to
is
that.
irrelevant.
Yep. Yep. And in terms of Sam's journey, where do you see yourselves going in terms of, is there further things from an adoption of technology? Are you thinking of moving more things to the cloud now that the ERP, since what, 2013, 2014? Are there other areas that you're thinking of?
We are moving a couple of other elements to the cloud. We've got projects in place to do that. One is our route planning for our lorries, for example, which was done in a legacy database.
Hmm.
Um, it's done on premises, and people getting access to it has become very, very difficult, simply because people are used to using our ERP system in the cloud. Now their requirements and their expectation levels, we've increased them to a different position.
Right.
Now they come back to us and say this tool is rubbish because you haven't migrated it to the cloud now.
It's
Um,
almost like IT on demand.
it is, yes, very much so. So we're moving that to the cloud, which changes the whole dynamic as well. Our scheduling software that we use to schedule both our factories, we've identified that it's a concern in terms of our reliance on it is 110% now, because it runs, as I said, both our factories.
Hmm.
So we're looking at moving it to the cloud. The software that we use has been, the cloud version is becoming available in 2021. So we'll be back speaking to you next year about that.
Right. And it was interesting because me and you have often talked about risk and resilience, and obviously scheduling's critical, but like planning your route planning is critical for the business to get product out the door, to be on time with clients. Do, do you see that cloud movement almost giving you more resilience?
I do. It's a concern, and there's little pockets that sort of concern me when I have conversations with different people. Obviously, this year has been very tough, and we have had a lot of people working from home.
Hmm.
And in conversation with some of our sales team, we just had sort of got up and said, well, the laptop's great, but I've started using my own personal laptop just to give me a second screen. And all of a sudden you start to think to yourself, well, that's not part of our inventory. We know the antivirus system isn't protected on it. And with the best intentions, they're exposing our cloud environment to
potential risk.
To risk. So the risk management is something that's much more important. And it's people doing things. I know Microsoft are very keen on this bring your own device concept, but at the same time, you've got to be careful and manage that.
Right. And do you believe the cloud platforms gives you that control?
It does. I mean, the fact that, people can jump into a 365 account on any PC. We know it's secured. We know that their OneDrive is robust and secured.
Yeah.
Two of our sales guys just had experiences recently where their machines were inadvertently damaged because they were saving stuff on their C drive. They lost some of their work.
Right.
So
they've learned the hard way.
I've learned the hard way, and as have I. I'm sure if anybody's been in the IT business for as long as we've all been through it. But data is the most important thing. A machine can be replaced, and a computer is simply a window to your data. That's just kind of the principle I'm trying to sort of teach people now.
Right, that's actually a very good point. Way to put it. It is. The computer is just the view to your data, and data is key. Well, from what you've been saying, you're kind of in a hybrid solution at this minute in time, where there's certainly the ERP's cloud, you've got your Office 365, OneDrive documents, emails, cloud, and then we're now in this process of the legacy databases. And do you see once do you feel that they will drive when they're in the cloud as well? You're going to get the additional resilience, and do you feel it'll drive even more efficiency?
Absolutely. I mean, the simple terms. We know that we worked together to put in a solution 6-7 years ago in terms of servers, and it's a fantastic solution. It's been brilliant for us. I was just actually thinking in terms of the factory work that we did, which was really an awful lot of work around Christmas 2013-14.
That's right, yes.
We've had zero failures in that. And that's tantamount to sort of making sort of the investment in resilience. And that's a great example of sort of on-premises stuff. But when you look at sort of the cloud, you must do the same kind of thing. We're just going through a process of the circuit, our main connection for the internet into the factory. We've just signed up for a 50% speed increase with that, and putting in a failover circuit as well, just to make sure that we've had zero downtime for the last 6-7 years. But we want long may that continue.
Yeah, it's become the norm for the business as opposed to the exception. Yeah,
there's a couple of times with the cloud, the best thing you can experience to sort of highlight the fact that you must sort of have the correct underpinnings. And in a couple of times we've had power failures in the factory, and we've had the offices and the factory themselves sitting with people sitting about sort of waiting to sort of the power to come back on. You've got to sort of protect your investment.
Yes.
You've got to make sure that you're having said that, in the cloud we were able to send people back to their houses and they could work from home.
Yeah.
On premises we couldn't do that.
Yes, and in your industry, time and deliveries and schedules and production lines, always on IT is kind of essential now. It's again, it's the expectation from the customer.
It is. Well, as an IT department, our customers are our factory, our logistics department, our sales department, and at the moment we run 24/7. We've had discussions, obviously, in terms of moving some of the legacy systems, as you were saying, into the cloud. One of the ones we've been working on recently is a very simple one. It's our computer-aided design drawings of all our profiles that we sell to customers. They were stored in Antrim on a server and very difficult to get access to from Donington, our other factory. So with the experienced engineers, we built a cloud environment and moved the drawings up to the cloud server, so they're now accessible right through the factories, both factories and offices, the click of a button. And the big benefit is the guys who are working from home can do the same. So it
Mhm.
removes again the four walls, the physicality of having your data in one. It's not an Antrim, it's not in Donegal, it's in the cloud.
Yeah. So as you say, regardless of where you are, you have an eye on your data. Just log on and you've got access to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, hardware fails, computers fail, laptops break, but if your data's in the cloud, you're safe and protected.
Well, Tim, sometimes IT departments are accused of just spending money, right? And asking, you and I have often discussed asking the board, I want to spend this and X and Y. Do you feel do you feel it's brought the business cost savings? Do you feel the business has had a return on its investment?
I think so. I think we've switched in terms of sort of we focus now very much sort of giving people equipment and hardware that works to the point in terms of allowing people to sort of access the data. The cost of hosting and the cost of running the cloud-based environment, we believe, and certainly from the budgets and costs that I've done, is less than having to sort of provide the same equipment on site.
Hmm.
If I had not chosen the cloud, I'd be looking at sort of servers based in Donington, servers based in Antrim, trying to connect the two together, manage data flow between the two sites, possibly additional licensing of some of our software as well.
Yeah.
So, when you break it down and you sort of do the sums, the cloud does pay for itself.
Right. Okay. And so the board are happy with the decisions you've made to date.
So far, so far, there's always time for change.
Well, I suppose, Tim, as IT director, it's all about change. I mean, and when we first met, you saw your role as business improvement. Technology is only the tool, but you're there to help the business improve its processes and be more efficient.
Very much so. I always use the cheesy one in ICT. It's a big I, big C, and small t.
Yeah.
That's the mantra that I've always tried to purvey. Um, as a shareholder in our company, spending money is important to me as well. So I'm always
Hmm.
looking for that return on investment.
Hmm.
I think this year has been extremely tough. I think it's highlighted the fact that with cloud-based environment, you can you can sort of adapt very, very quickly. You can avoid the nature of people who can't come to work. If you can't get a person into work, as long as they've got even the case of their own laptop, they can
Hmm.
access our cloud-based environment. They can access their 365 environment. They can access our ERP system. We can continue to work.
Hmm.
That's become so important. We were able to sort of equip as many people as we could in the first lockdown period and get them out to their houses to be safe and continue
Hmm.
to function and continue to communicate. It's the irony probably is I was trying to sort of force people into using Microsoft Teams at the start of the year, and there was getting sort of pushback and saying, "Oh, this will never work. People will never accept this," and
Yeah.
now they can't live without it.
Yeah. That's it. Just shows you how quickly we can adapt and we can adopt, and actually, it becomes the new norm. You know, well, would you ever go back?
I don't see a reason to go back. I don't see somebody would have to. The world would have to change to be a much different place.
Hmm.
I'm happy with the decisions I made about moving to the cloud. I think the security and accessibility were the two big things.
Yeah.
The cost was not prohibitive and continues to be
Hmm.
absolutely fine. I think in terms of we've had incidents this week in the past period where we can sort of phone up and say, guys, we were doing a bit of an extra project. We're going to upgrade our ERP system. Can you improve our hosting level? And we can get some more memory thrown at it, an extra processor, and it's all virtualized. There's no engineer with a bag of tricks and a bag of spanners coming out to the site to do it.
Yeah. So
You
it's
know,
all scalable as you need it.
as we need it.
Hmm.
It's difficult actually. Whenever you sort of consider, I was taking sort of our manufacturing system, which isn't really accessible or doesn't need to be accessible outside the factory. I'm still looking at virtualizing that and putting it in the cloud because I know it's safe. I know it's the hardware issues become irrelevant, and I know it's protected.
Mm-hmm.
And in a circumstance where we have when you're looking at your business continuity planning and your disaster recovery planning, if we have an issue with the premises and it's in the cloud, we can still function.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a bit like what we touched on earlier. It's de-risking,
Yes,
and I suppose I would equate it. You made a very important comment there earlier about data being the key asset now in a business, and you're de-risking loss of data.
absolutely. I mean, with accessibility of data, some of the directors we meet daily in a Teams meeting, and all the directors, our CFO, CEO, etc., can all access as much data as they want to consume from our ERP system and our analysis systems. We're starting to use Power BI as well now to sort of produce salient reports.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Brilliant.
the big thing is now we're monitoring sales and performance on a daily basis. We're
Mm-hmm.
looking at sort of our customer base. We're having to react really quickly. It's a very, very changing and dynamic market. And data is the driver for this. The more data you have accessible and the quicker you can get at it, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that applies to most businesses. Certainly now, we're only a manufacturing company. We at the end of the starting board and architrave, but we're in a very competitive business, and our customers are reacting at the 11th hour based on sort of the changing dynamics in the market,
Mm-hmm.
especially this year. Some of our big customers like Wix and so on have been they're because people can't travel, their sales are going through the roof, and they've been they want product.
Yes.
So we have to react as quickly as we can.
So, for yourselves, it's about just how agile can you be, and having access to the right data and is allowing you to make decisions quickly.
Absolutely. Daily or momentarily, based on a Teams call and a couple of shared screens, we know
Mm-hmm.
exactly the position with the company. We can follow an order from cradle to grave. At the end of the day, cash is king. So
Yeah.
it's important that we sort of manage all our systems and make them as you said, Paddy, as agile as possible.
Well, Tim, look, we'll finish on a couple of points. I was just going to ask, what do you guys see 2021 and 2022 being for SAMs?
More of the same. We've been very fortunate, touch wood, and had a reasonable recovery from what was a very difficult period this year.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at sort of taking more of our legacy systems and putting them into the cloud. We're doing more consolidation between our Donington site and our Antrim site.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at a unified communications project as well, which you guys are assisting some of the work
Yep.
on with this for us. And that basically takes the telephone systems, the physical phones off the desks, and everything sort of runs through the cloud as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some exciting projects ahead.
Enough to keep you busy.
Keep me off the streets. Keep me out of this factory.
Yes, keep you off the golf course, more importantly, Tim, which is, well, not what we want to do. But
Not a chance.
well, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to share with us on this podcast your journey to date. And from an experience perspective, it's been great that you chose us as your IT partner. And, we've been working with you guys now for 6-7 years. So I want to thank you for that too. And look, we look forward to further collaboration in 2021 and 2022.
Absolutely. More of the onwards and upwards for both our companies, I think.
Yes, well, listen, thank you very much, Tim. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome.